When you hear the word judgment, what is your first response? Does it bring up a sense of unease, defensiveness, or shame? Or do you recall actually memories of times when good judgment led to great decisions, resolved a challenging situation, or helped bring clarity? Judgment describes the ability to combine relevant information and experience to make a decision. And to live a purposeful life, we want to make informed decisions, so the skill of forming opinions to take action is of great value. Therefore, making a judgment is actually a good thing in the first place. For example, you attended an introduction workshop and now you will judge whether or not to invest into the complete training. You will decide whether to rent a new apartment or continue with your search based on your judgment whether the place you just saw fulfills your needs. And equally, after spending some time with people in your community, you better understand people's personalities and characters, and therefore it's easier for you to make a grounded judgment about who you will feel comfortable with and want to spend more time with. So being able to make sound judgment is the foundation for creating the life we want to live. It helps us to determine what company we want to enjoy, what brings us fulfillment, and whether what we experience is aligned with our values and the direction we want to take in life. And you all know that there is a fine line between making a judgment and being judgmental. If you observe your thoughts, you will notice that you do judge people more often than you'd like to admit. And it's easy to fall into the trap of comparing others against our values, standards, and the rules we live by. And worse, what often happens unnoticed is that we conclude from that comparison the worth and the weight of the person, and we start making judgments about their character. Clifford and Lazarus, clinical director of the Lazarus Institute, suggests that the moment we can add the word therefore behind an observation, we actually become judgmental. So for example, you're at a party and someone entertains the group with jokes. Now the statement, this person is making one joke after the other, is just simply an observation. However, when your next thought continues with, therefore he is superficial and I won't be able to have a deeper conversation with him, this is becoming judgmental. If you give in to this judgment at the party, you might miss out on an interesting connection. Why are we judgmental towards others? Basically, we want to feel better about ourselves, and judging others then helps us to feel more superior. It could also be related to a lack of self-esteem, because that may cause envy or resentment and is an easy way not to feel that by judging others, diminishing their efforts and achievements. As I mentioned before, it's easier and faster to judge than to take the time to dig deep or to understand the other person. And some of us don't want to spend the time to deeply understand a problem because that would require empathy, patience, curiosity, and openness. When we judge someone, we are also in touch with a part of ourselves that has been judged too at one point in life. So for example, if you're getting annoyed by kids playing outside really loudly, you may want to check whether you were allowed to be noisy and loud as a child, or whether your parents or caregivers preferred you to not be heard. It could also be that we have been hurt in the past and we developed a rigid viewpoint on what is right and what is wrong. So now we protect ourselves and we deflect by blaming others, pointing fingers and judging them. And for some of us, sadly, in our childhood, all we learned was being compared to others and judged for our behavior and our performance. And then what happens in relationships is that we often fall back into this default behavior of criticizing others. And some of us have a strong inner critic, and we try to avoid the judgment of this inner voice by pointing out how others are much worse than us. And we hope that by doing this, the inner critic will be distracted and lets us off the hook. It could also be that we may have developed a black or white view to stay in control of things, and whatever isn't right in our opinion will be judged as wrong. Now, as you can imagine, being on the receiving end of judgment is often hurtful and damaging and stressful, especially when the person doesn't have a strong sense of self. It leads to self-doubt, a sense of being less than others, that something is wrong with us, and often to a feeling of exclusion. Needless to say that relationships do suffer when someone is criticizing all the time, because the person who gets judged will sooner or later withdraw and not be interested in any connection anymore. Those who have followed me for a while will know that I advocate self-awareness, self-reflection, and self-inquiry. I really like Byron Katie's question, is it absolutely true? Because what we think and believe is based on our experiences, our upbringing and education, and very often also influenced by caregivers and other important people in our life. And therefore, it's helpful to remember that what is suitable for us may not be right for someone else. Becoming aware of your personal biases and how these influence your observations and decision making is essential. And of course, this is easier said than done, and it requires us to be mindful, curious, and detached about what we will discover. Please consider that you don't know everything about a person, a situation, or a decision that needs to be made. So pause to listen and understand the other person. Be curious and take time to explore other options and scenarios you may not have thought of yet. We often believe we have all the information we need to decide well, only to find out later that we should have taken more time to investigate deeper, and instead we're just satisfied with a quick judgment. One of the advices that I give most often is to be more empathic and considerate. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes is the best way to understand better what they go through. And even then, we can't fully grasp what the other person is experiencing. Let's just consider that they're probably doing their best with the tools and resources they have and what's available to them right now. Equally ask yourself whether your judgment is in any way contributing to improving a situation. Judging others isn't only bad and hurtful to them, it puts you into a negative space, and if you want to vent, be curious about where this is coming from and what's underneath. So rather than reacting and becoming defensive and judgmental, become still and curious about what is going on inside for you. What is the trigger about? For example, old incidents might come to the surface, memories of other relationships that didn't work out, or parts of you that felt misunderstood, ignored, or diminished in the past may just come to the surface again at this moment. As I mentioned before, judgment is often a projection of our unmet needs, unaddressed fears, and insecurities. Remember that most of the time when we judge others, it's not about them, but really about us. So next time you notice you're planning to or you're intending to judge someone, ask yourself, what is a positive thing I can think or say instead? Thank you so much for being here with me today and tuning in. And until soon, take good care.